Welcome to the Digital Planning Podcast. This series is designed to educate individuals about all things digital in connection with estate planning, business planning, and estate administration. To keep up with all things digital, please subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever you download your podcasts. And now, Jennifer Ziegel, a partner at Kleinberg LLC, Ross Bruck, a principal of Estate Genie, and Justin Brown, a partner at Troutman Pepperell Hamilton Sanders LLP, with today's topic.
Welcome to the Digital Planning Podcast. My name is Justin, and I'm here with Jen and Ross, my co-hosts. And today we are here with Cody Barbo, who is the CEO and co-founder of Trust and Will. Cody, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, to start off, Cody, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am based in San Diego, California. It's currently beautiful and sunny out, so would love to record a podcast outside one time, but it's nice inside too. But I've been in Southern California my whole life, in San Diego for 13 years, came down here for school, and I've only been an entrepreneur for the last decade. I've started 3 companies, 2 venture-backed, and am not an attorney by background or trade. We do have a great one on the team. I'll give some more context to, but how did someone like myself get into estate planning? Same with my co-founders. I'm married, I'm a father, and to kind of level up my responsibility and thinking through the relationship with a financial advisor, joint filing of taxes, setting up term life insurance, a will became one of these things to add to our to-do list. And having been almost exclusively online for the last decade with my life financially, with my investments, money, even setting up term life insurance easily online, why was estate planning such an antiquated and fragmented experience? I was getting quotes for $3,000 to $5,000 from attorneys for an estate plan that was far too complex for my wife and I at the time, a couple of years ago. And with the online options like LegalZoom, Rocket Lawyer, it's a one-and-done Band-Aid transaction. That is not estate planning. Estate planning is this living, breathing set of documents that you should update as your life changes, your financial situation changes, and your potential liquidity of your business changes, how that can impact your family. So there's a lot of advanced planning that can come later on in life. And the fact that this doesn't happen in an ongoing digital relationship just really concerned me as much as it surprised me that no one had built the TurboTax of estate planning. So 3 years ago, decided to say, hey, if no one else is doing it, might as well be us. And decided to take my entrepreneurial chops. My co-founders coming from a product development background at a great agency here in town, working with big companies. And all of us now being married and fathers, it hit the personal side of it and how we think about even our own parents or grandparents that are still with us and how we think through the relationship of their estate plan and how it impacts us and our family. What gaps are there in this process? Has their estate plan ever been created? Has it been updated? Does it account for digital assets, right? Everything from crypto to social media to your photos, your emails, usernames, passwords. This huge wave of digital assets that have no call out in today's estate plans with attorneys. So the reality is that most people do this because they have families. They want to make it easier for their families. And we are just so concerned by the number of families that don't have an estate plan, don't have the financial means to afford an estate planning attorney. Why not go out and try and democratize this for millions, if not tens of millions of families?
So you are preaching to the choir here because you've got 3 estates attorneys who are here with you, and I think we know the importance of getting an estate plan and doing estate planning and recognizing that estate planning is a continuing process. It's not a one and done type of process. So to have that message and to send that message off to people, I think is really a good thing. So tell us a little bit about how Trust and Will works.
Yeah, so majority of our members, just a little context. So we've been in market now for 3 years. We've helped over 200,000 families start this process. We're live in all 50 states. We are primarily a self-service platform. So whether you come to Trust and Will because you saw an ad or you saw one of our cars that's wrapped in Orange County right now, you saw our TV commercial, word of mouth, whatever the case may be, everybody's going to get the same signature experience. And one of the things that we've found, it's very obvious, and 3 of you will know this, is estate planning can be very intimidating. It can be very emotional because some people might be coming in with the positives, they just had a kid, just bought a home, or the negatives, they just dealt with the worst probate experience of their life. It tore their siblings apart, and it's years since that passing of that family member, and they're still dealing with it. They want to set up their own family for success. So we really try and think of ourselves as the guide. We're going to guide you through this process. We're not going to rush you through it. We lead with educational content. So people come to trustandwill.com. The first thing they're going to be exposed to is a quick little quiz. Most people don't know what a trust is. Generally, consumers know what a will is through family or pop culture. So we have this quick quiz that helps you kind of figure out, well, what is important to me? I don't care what an estate plan is, but what's important to me? Is it my children? How I pass on my wealth? Who can make healthcare decisions for me? Etc. And this quiz of 20 or so clickable icons is going to funnel them to one of three products. We have, for the first-time parent, a Guardian product. It's just a nomination of Guardian form, priced very affordably. It takes 5 minutes to complete. For then, we have the will-based estate plan, which is a package of documents. You have last will and testament, power of attorney, HIP authorization. That's going to be priced at $89 and $159 for single versus a couple's will. And then we have our trust, which is a revocable living trust, which is what most attorneys would prescribe to an everyday family that don't have that much complexity. That's priced at $399, $499. These products are very easy to get through. If you know all the answers up front, it might take 30 to 45 minutes, depending on how granular you want to get, without filling information about your kids, your assets, investments, business interests, your final arrangements, healthcare decisions, etc. And what's nice with Trust and Will is we're going to guide you every step of the way. We're going to give you educational content from the Learn Center. You have 7 days of chat support with our team, so if you wanted to chat with the actual representative. We have a team of member support professionals that have all been educated by our in-house trust and estates team. They can answer a majority of questions. And this is all without payment. We don't charge until the very end because we want our members to go through the full experience, that full test drive with confidence, knowing that they can talk to their partner, they can talk to their financial advisor, really review these decisions that they're making, considering the outcomes. And once you've paid at the end, you have printed documents that are printed and shipped in these beautiful folders. I have one behind me on my cabinet here, but I know the listeners won't be able to see this. But all organized in specific folders with state-specific execution on signature, notary, and witnesses. So once those are purchased, we ship those out next day. They get to people's doorsteps within the week. And for a majority of our customers, they store the documents physically still, because that's how the laws are. In several states that we've been the first to market to, Nevada, Florida, Indiana, Arizona, Utah, and Colorado, you can actually now do an electronic will. Digital execution, digital signature, digital notary, digital witnesses, signing, and digital storage of those documents. And we work with a partner out of Boston called Notarize to facilitate this digital experience. And that's really what consumers expect. They expect the full execution to be end-to-end digital. We kind of have to bum them out, say, hey, the laws aren't quite caught up to the technology. You have to go to your UPS store or a postal annex or have a mobile notary come to your home in order to make these documents valid. So we're kind of dealing with this transition time. It's like the Netflix DVD model, which was great, but Netflix wanted to move to streaming. Technology wasn't quite caught up. Broadband speeds weren't quite caught up. And that is the transition we'll be making as a company over the next couple of years, is that end-to-end digital creation and execution. So those are the three products we have today. We do offer attorney support in several states. We have a small contracted network of attorneys, trust and estate attorneys, that are typically serving clients with more complex family situations or usually $2 million in assets and above. They just want to talk to an expert, talk through advanced planning, scenario modeling, talk through tax implications, have a line-by-line item review of the trust documents that our software is generating. And we found it to be a really nice experience. We charge a little bit more for it, but it's been really nice for a lot of our members that have assets or complexity.
We want to dive into a lot of what you just said about the process and about electronic wills and about notarization. Before we do, can you talk a little bit about demographics and who your typical users are and also how they're finding you?
Yeah, so our customers range from 18 to 92. I don't know what 18-year-olds are creating wills, but they exist. But a majority are kind of in two buckets. So this first bucket of 30 to 55-year-olds, married with children, typically homeowners. If they're choosing the will product, they've about $500,000 in assets, usually including the value of their home. If they're choosing the trust, $1 to $2 million in assets. And then the second bucket, and they're usually first-time creators. They've never created a will or a trust before. The second bucket, being 55 plus, is usually coming to Trust and Will for one of three reasons. They still have not set up an estate plan after 30, 40 years of their adult life. They need to update their estate plan, so we do trust-free statements. They could replace their legacy will with us very easily. And then the third is that they're a caregiver. They might have an aging parent that they're now responsible for, and they can't make medical or financial decisions on that person's behalf. So they're helping that family member create their own estate plan so that they can have the authority to do so. And I just like the fact that, at the end of the day, we're helping families. Our mission at the company is to help families better plan for the future. And we think a lot about legacy. And I actually don't know if the three of you know this, but the definition of the word legacy is the money and property you leave behind in your will. And we really wanted to make this investment in families because that's the team that we have, the 40 plus employees at Trust and Will. A lot of us are married, a lot of us are parents, or some of us are caregivers to an aging grandparent that we have to make those tough but necessary decisions for. So I like that we can look through that lens every single day. Ross, the second question you asked about where we're finding customers, a little bit of everywhere. We've raised $23 million in venture capital, so we have a pretty substantial marketing budget. So we have a national TV campaign that's running on linear and the streaming platforms. We're doing out-of-home car campaigns in different markets. We have financial influencers that are going in local DMA markets, talking about the importance of financial planning, life insurance, estate planning. They mentioned Trust and Will. And then everything you'd expect from a digital-first company. So a lot of acquisition through Google, through social media channels, a little bit on the micro-influencer space. And good old-fashioned direct mailers actually work quite well. So not discounting old-school marketing tactics.
Cody, do you have anything built into your platform or your algorithm that could potentially identify a complex planning situation that might not be appropriate, for your platforms? And if you do, how does that get identified and then handled?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we're not a good fit for everyone, and we're okay with that. And we try and get ahead of it as quickly as we can. So typically there's two scenarios where we try and bounce people out. The first is if it's, say, a third marriage. There's kids across all three, assets across all three families. Our software is just not designed for that edge case today. The second would be more of a wealth trigger. Once our customers are coming to us with north of $5 million in assets, we get a little concerned if the Rev Trust is the right option for them because of the tax implications. And that's where that attorney network that we have, I think, is being a really great filtering mechanism, is that customer, we might flag their asset threshold, say, hey, maybe you want to talk to one of our attorneys just to make sure that we're a good fit for you. And that attorney can make the call and say, hey, look, we really appreciate you checking out Trust and Will, but you need a more complex estate. You might need an ILIT or a GRAT that your advisor is recommending. You might need actually a special needs trust based on your adult child with special needs, or a generational skipping trust is what you're looking for. And we don't offer that complexity of documents. So the attorney has the option, if they're within the state and they want to work that attorney, they could take them on as a client, but you're going to pay full price. Or you could be referred out to another trust and estate attorney, and that's okay. And we think of the attorney network that we have today over the next 6 to 12 months will somewhat serve in that function that we may move into more complex estates. So the ability for that attorney to not have to pay a LexisNexis or a wealth counsel, to still be able to generate a more complex estate using our internal tools, we can really pass on the cost savings to the customer and still allow the attorney to make their money without all the overhead of running their own boutique firm. Because at the end of the day, correct me if I'm wrong here, guys, like you're doing this to help families. Like you're making it a career to make money and provide for your own, but it is to really help families. And I think that's the case for a majority of the 100,000 T&E attorneys across this country. And we're not serving the ultra high net worth segment. So those attorneys very clearly know the clients that they want to serve, the complexities that they want to serve, and we won't serve them. So we kind of have this nice gap that will start to close over the next year. And then just knowing our cutoff is ultra high net worth segment is not our focus, not our bread and butter.
So if you're in all 50 states and have that built-in attorney network, it wasn't always like that. You started out in a few states, or what was the genesis of that? Because that's, I think, to any planning attorney who's listening to this, that sounds like one of the most intimidating parts of what you're talking about. Understanding every state is different in terms of its law and its application, and can you talk through that?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long journey to get here. So when we first rolled out in March of 2018, we just rolled out a last will and testament in the states of California and Texas. California because we're based here, Texas because that's where my co-founder went to school, and all of our friends are 30s, married with kids now, so at least we'd be able to solicit our network to start. But the state specificity, it was something we were very mindful of early on. Our first hire at the company was Patrick Hicks. He's a 10-year trust and estates attorney serving the everyday family to high net worth family offices with $500 million in assets. And one of the more frustrating experiences he had in his career was not being able to serve clients because they couldn't afford him. They couldn't afford the firm they worked for. So his interest in wanting to join the company was really to be able to serve families that have assets just can't afford 3 to 5,000 or 5 to 10,000 if they're in a big metro market. So Patrick helped us really take a very diligent approach to how many states we rolled out. It took us a full year after we raised our $2 million seed round. It took us a full year to get our will product to the majority of states. Then we raised our $6 million Series A. We had our trust product live in majority of states. The last 2 states were Louisiana and North Carolina, which you guys know this, and maybe some of your listeners too. Those states are very old school and antiquated. And we are very, very mindful, because we are not a law firm. We don't want to get sued, or at least be mindful of unauthorized practice of law. This is before the attorney network that we now have. So we had to just be very diligent in our approach to rolling this out. So it took us 2 years. We've spent 2 years with working with the Uniform Law Commission, specifically on their drafting committee for electronic wills. We're a board of director with ESRA, the Electronic Signatures and Records Association, which has the GCs of DocuSign, Notarize, a bunch of big document and signature companies. And we've kind of been this catalyst there's been innovation in digital signatures. There's been innovation in RON, Rulona for online notary, uniform probate. Now we're seeing this movement with e-wills, and we're almost on a quarterly basis, if not closer to real time, tracking ledge sessions of when e-wills are coming to market. We'd helped pass the e-will act with the ULC back in fall of 2019 as just a member of the committee. But now we're seeing that bill adopted in Colorado and Utah. The previous 4 states were kind of one-offs: Florida, Indiana, Arizona, and what's the other one? Nevada, Florida, Indiana, and Arizona. Those are the 4 one-offs, and then Utah and Colorado are uniform e-wills. So now we have a 2-person legal team at the company. So we're trying as best we can to go above and beyond in our commitment to, 1, not getting sued, but 2, to serve our members as best we can. And especially with the partners we work with, we have integrations and relationships with Schwab, Fidelity. We raised investment capital from Fifth Third Bank, Northwestern Mutual, AARP. And just to have this kind of credibility boost, having the investment from these organizations, and now leading to partnerships, we have to go through the full vendor approval process where they have to de-risk us as a partnership, or de-risk the realities of what we've faced for 3 years in the relationship they have with Trust and Will. So just like treading water and not stepping on anyone's toes, building some great relationships along the way. But it takes a long time, Ross.
Certainly is a balancing act.
Yeah, yeah.
To go back to one of the comments you made about digital asset planning and cryptocurrencies, what are you bringing into your platform now in connection with planning for those types of assets?
Yeah, so I think it's still early for the mass market consumer to really dive deep into digital assets. I think the obvious ones would be usernames, passwords, social media, photos, and email to the common consumer in terms of digital assets. So just having a call out for a digital executor: what are the digital accounts that you would like to have cataloged, and what are your final wishes? Do you want it to be shut down? Some of those social media platforms offer memorialization of the account itself at like a high level. Remember, we started the company in late 2017, so this is like the first boom of the crypto market. So we did have some inbound when we first started the company, and we're raising that first couple rounds of capital, of people saying, hey, well, how do I account for my cryptocurrency? If it's with Coinbase, it's a digital wallet, it's a little more straightforward because it's treated like any other financial institution. If it's cold storage wallet, it has to have a specific call out and special instructions on who can access it, where is it located, what is the key that encrypts that cold storage wallet. And more recently, in the last couple months here, with NFTs, non-fungible tokens, which Beeple sold this digital artwork for 60 plus million. You're seeing NBA Top Shot sell digital dunks and sports replays for hundreds of thousands of dollars. You're now seeing music artists truly own their catalog and artwork or music as an NFT. And who knows, this could all be, a bubble that pops in the next year. But I mean, half a billion in transactions in the first few months of this year on NFTs. I mean, it's significant for some people's portfolio. And, effectively it is treated like art or collectible. We've seen some of our members call out NFTs in the last 2 months within their estate plan. We have like a special blank pages section for any random collectibles that they can call out. And it's just fascinating because we don't really know the true value of these assets until we're 30, 40 years out from now, when probably every asset, digital and physical, will have some digital identity, true digital ownership tied back to a person. And it's early innings, but it's super exciting. And we're trying to be a little more intentional over the next year about functionally, who can we partner with? Who are like the more mainstream names like the Coinbases and the NBA Top Shots as just examples that could have a direct integration with these digital assets into the estate plan.
So Cody, I wanted to go back to something that you talked about before, which was electronic wills. And I read that you guys have executed electronic wills. And I just wanted to get a sense from you as to what that process looked like. I know throughout the country there are, especially with the pandemic, there's a lot of debate over electronic wills and whether we should be moving to electronic wills. And some jurisdictions, such as Florida, which allow electronic wills, it really hasn't taken off. So, kind of want to get your sense of what have you seen since you're in the trenches with this all the time.
Yeah, so the product experience, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, at the checkout, once the customers purchase their will with us, they can choose to have their documents printed and shipped, which some customers just naturally prefer that. That's okay. That's our whole business as it is today. Or they can choose to do a digital execution. So we work with Notarize. They're a very well-funded venture-backed company out of Boston, primarily serving customers in the mortgage and real estate industry with almost like a Zoom-like experience. You get on a video call with the notary. They're showing a valid form of government ID. They're doing some really cool deep tech where they match your face and ID with your own face on the camera with identity database that they have. All this happens magically. You don't notice this. And then you're doing a digital signature. The notary does the digital stamp. And then that session is recorded as video and stored in the cloud along with the documents. It's, in my opinion, it's much more transparent than the notary you went to at the bank that you probably don't remember, the notary you went to at the postal store. And like even in probate, like it's not like they're looking up the records of that notary's book. Like they don't ever pull that up. And the video would be such more obvious evidence if it needed to be provided. So at the very least, we have built a really slick integration with Notarize for the digital execution, starting with Nevada, which is the first state in history that allowed this. We're the first companies to provide it. And then in the states of Florida. And then over the course of the next month here, we'll be going live in Indiana, Arizona, and Utah next. Colorado is a weird requirement with witnesses having to be present, which we're trying to figure out a workaround on. So there's still nuances, even though that Colorado and Utah are the first with the uniform language that the ULC passed in the eWill Act. But at the end of the day, we're trying to create convenience for consumers. And this last year, more than any other time, created such a validation for why you should be able to execute these documents safely, securely, but from the comfort and safety of your own home. And we're early on in the pandemic, you saw this, like there's probably like a dozen states whose governors signed emergency executive orders allowing for a video call on any platform where you could do some form of notary and signature experience. A lot of those were sunsetted or short-termed as the number of cases of COVID went down. But what it did is it changed the narrative. Where we used to be the only ones pushing this digital agenda, we now talk to dozens of trust and estate firms all across the country. They want digital execution for their clients. Their clients don't want to come down to the office or go to their home to meet with them. They want to be able to do this securely in a digital environment. So with Notarize being one of the few companies that offers this, they've been our partner and trying to pioneer that this works. We'll see what happens with DocuSign. DocuSign acquired Live Oak Technologies, which is another big remote online notary platform, and they're going through the process of probably rolling out at a pretty significant scale, considering DocuSign's a 50 billion market cap company, this remote online notary experience, but again, primarily for the real estate and mortgage industry. So we have this opportunity over the next year or two, I think, to really control the narrative and not to keep it just to ourselves, but to control it for trust and estates as an industry. And how does this better consumers? The fact that you don't have to go to some random place or have someone come to your home is safely and securely online. And the fact that it should cost cheaper, it shouldn't cost as much to pay a physical notary to do this. So we're working with Ezra on some kind of broad scale campaigns right now. ULC is kind of in the past, they're moving on to their next things. But Ezra has kind of been the place that we're spending a lot of our time, efforts, and resources. And then we're working with Notarize and just kind of following the massive government affairs campaigns of DocuSign to increase the rollout of RON, Remote Online Notary, because I think Virginia was the first state to allow this about 10 years ago. There's now 36 states that allow for remote online notary. And I'm just beyond confident that it'll be a majority, if not all states, in the next 2 years. We kind of follow that wake with e-wills. And we have similar confidence with RUFADA, which is the fancy acronym for digital assets, how a member of a family can go to a Facebook, Google, etc. There's now 46 states that I think that have adopted RUFADA since it was passed in 2015. And I'm just very bullish that with companies like Trust and Will, but even best-in-class estate planning firms that want to offer their clients a digital execution solution, we can work with them or they can work with Notarize directly to bring this to the masses. And I hope that we see that naturally come to all 50 states in the next few years.
Have you had the unfortunate circumstance where one of your clients, who is a testator, pass away with a remote notarization? And can you walk us through what that experience is like? And I'll tell you, the reason I ask is in Pennsylvania, it's obviously not one of the 6 states that you mentioned. We do not have electronic wills here. But having conversations with our registers of wills, the probate office in the local counties, there is a fear there of how to manage that from a data storage, from a security, from just an overall, this is a new process for them. And I'm wondering if you can comment on the experience there.
Yeah, so for complete candidness, so we haven't had a member who's completed with a digital execution die and what the outcome of that estate is, because the majority of our members are younger, but I know that we're going to start tracking death reporting. It's uncomfortable, but we're in the business. I think we're in a safe space here. But like actually tracking the deaths and outcomes of our members, especially the ones that did the digital execution, and if that shared video experience is even needed to be brought up in the probate experience. Because one of our hopes with building Trust and Will is that our members never have an out-of-date estate plan. You look at the 40% of the population that has gone through this process, traditionally almost exclusively with attorneys. They might be updating it once every 5 to 7 years, if that. And our concern is that people are ending up at death with a completely out-of-date estate plan. It can't physically be located. The family members who were named in it didn't know it, and now they have to deal with it. So what we're building over the next year to 2 years is kind of the single source of truth, where the customers that are creating or updating their estate plan with us, and we do identity verification with them. We're bringing their family members into the ecosystem. So if they have a responsibility as trustee, executor, beneficiary, healthcare agent, you can notify them directly through the platform. We educate them with content from our Learn Center. They're then creating an account with us as well. So we have a digital record of them that we'll also do identity verification with. In addition to that, this year and into next year, verifying and digitally linking all of your assets with all of your institutions you have, similar to how you do it with a mint.com or a personal capital, that all of those institutions have a digital connection to the estate plan. And then ultimately, the service professionals. We have a product for financial advisors. We have a couple thousand financial advisors that are recommending Trust and Will. So we have a shared access between the estate planning portal, not just the documents, but the portal between an advisor and their client. And then we also have the estate planning attorneys in several states, which you can naturally share the documents with. And we're trying to figure out is at what point do we open this up to all trust and estate attorneys that want to bring their clients into a digital ecosystem. Again, tying it back to the single source of truth. We're doing identity verification of the creator, people named in the documents, all of the assets with all the institutions they have those assets with, and the service professionals. It would really hopefully be an always up-to-date estate plan, or a truly real-time estate plan for the first time in history, where there's no gaps, right? If there's a triggering event, like you have a child, you move states, have a liquidity event, or a death in the family, that is a reason to update your estate plan or to have one of your professionals around you be involved in the experience, to either keep you in a rev trust or move you to a more complex type of estate. So this is the vision I'm sharing with our investors. This is the future of estate planning, as it becomes this end-to-end digital experience, and we look at it through the lens of wealth transfer, not just the creation of the documents. So, we want to help our customers manage their estate throughout their lives with all the right people around them. And eventually when they pass, we want to build this fluid experience around a transfer of wealth and assets from one family generation to the next. How do we help families avoid probate? And honestly, it's mostly helping them understand the value of a trust. So we want to guide them through that journey, maybe upgrading from a will to a trust over time, and just be there for them, and with an end-to-end digital experience to never have to leave our ecosystem, but not forgetting the people, both the recipients, the beneficiaries, but also the service professionals that have such a proactive role to play. And we just look at it as kind of we're the digital connection to the old versus the new. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the reactions you've received from the trust and estates community because I can see some attorneys seeing this as a threat, especially for the more commodity-based basic will package. But you're describing the exact opposite of integrating them into the system and an evolution of the system. And that sounds like, I'm hoping it's getting a much better response from the attorneys you're interacting with.
It's like what happened when Intuit rolled out QuickBooks. That was the fear in the CPA community. Is oh, we're all going out of business, and it did like the inverse. It actually created more business and opportunity than CPAs had ever had before because they could facilitate more client transactions in a quicker period of time. So we, when we first started, if I'm being honest, like we had some local trust and estate attorneys who just brushed us off. It's just another LegalZoom, and I'm like, well, what do you not like about LegalZoom? Everything's templated off the shelf, and I'm like, well, who's their customer? And then they had to actually think through this question. I'm like, well, who's their target customer? It's small business owners. It's not families. And LegalZoom for 21 years has not been an estate planning company. And they're a huge company, they do hundreds of millions a year in revenue. Because they're not an estate planning company, it is a transaction. That estate plan, you pay up front for it, get it. It's usually a Band-Aid because you're about to go on a flight to Italy the night before and you realize you don't have this before you hit the bed. And you just want something in place that you hand sign, put it on your nightstand for grandma, grandpa, and that's it. That's not the way to do this. So if we have this opportunity to build, a social network effectively around your life cap table, everything you own and touch, digital and physical, why not involve the key service professionals that are really going to give you that expertise, but more importantly, that peace of mind, knowing that you're always going to have the right type of estate plan, which can be a part of this holistic financial plan. That's how the financial advisors look at it. And then when there's the tax consequences, that's when you get the CPA involved. So we really think deeply about the partnerships and integrations as estate planning touches your finances, insurance, taxes, real estate, planned giving, your healthcare. Why is there no healthcare integration? You're going in for surgery and it automatically pulls up in your patient profile, real time, integrated. Or if you're going in for surgery and don't have an estate plan, you can create these documents on the fly in 15, 20 minutes. So I think with estate planning attorneys too, we also aren't taking clients away from them because we're targeting a different generation of estate planning clients, which doesn't have an age barrier. It's just a preference of digital versus traditional. So that's the thing I like about our business is we can work towards the future without taking business away from the trust and estate market. And in the near future, work collaboratively together to better serve families.
We're on several different bar association, electronic will task forces, and we're all proponents and we see electronic wills as the future and what is going to eventually be, more of a standard way to execute estate planning documents. But through these task forces, we have a lot of attorneys, I would say almost half of the ones that are participatory, really concerned about fraud in electronic wills. So what do you say to those cautious attorneys?
What happens in a worst case scenario, right? How does the fraud actually play out? And the example that was brought up at the ULC when this EWIL Act was proposed to get passed was someone's off camera holding a gun to your head and forcing you to sign it against your will. And my counter is how often is that happening in this country where this is coming up? 99.999% of Americans will never have someone holding a gun to their head off camera forcing them to sign the will. The real concern is how much elder abuse and fraud is taking place within the legacy ecosystem. That's my combat. Why does this number keep going up? The amount of family members that are abusing their elder loved ones continue to go up and up and up. You have 10,000 people a day turning 65. Majority of them are going to get exposed to this. If we can build this digital single source of truth, identity verification of the creator, identity verification of those named in the documents, those beneficiaries. We have every asset, every institution linked to the estate plan. We're bringing the service professionals in. We create this digital audit trail. It can't be guaranteed to prevent any bad actors, but the level or the barrier to have fraud or abuse take place in that experience versus the offline experience. And it's pretty clear that the current offline experience isn't working for so many families. And I get a little fired up about this because we had a personal family member who had a bad experience, doesn't talk to her siblings anymore because the estate plan was out of date. The siblings all thought they were entitled to what they thought was initially going to be equal ownership. In fact, two of them conspired against the third to try and take majority ownership of the assets that were going to transfer. And it's created this lifelong mess. They only talk to each other through attorneys now. And if only that estate plan was up to date, if only the estate plan was communicated to the children while that father was still alive, the business interest that was going to pass along, maybe it would have sparked a healthier conversation. And that's our hope with the communication element of Trust and Mull, is that we hope that the family members and the service professionals are having these conversations while that person's still mentally there, and not while they're on their deathbed trying to get more ownership of the house because they're there for mom and the brother's young and he's partying in Vegas every other weekend. So that's kind of a personal but like example I'd almost push back on, is why is the legacy experience creating more fraud and elder abuse when we haven't even given digital a chance yet?
Let me play devil's advocate for a second, and feel free to tell me I'm wrong, because many people do. But what trust and estates attorneys or elder law attorneys may say is that they have the ability to be in the room with clients, and they have the ability to separate the client from whatever else is going on around the client. So an elder law or trust and estates attorney could say they are the protection against fraud, which you lose in the digitization process.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that is the argument that a lot of people are putting forward.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I would be curious. That's a really good point. I love it when you play devil's advocate. I would be really curious to see in something we've been thinking about internally is like what the opportunity is if Trust and Mull or a financial institution was named as like a corporate trustee, professional trustee, or executor in the relationship to the client's estate, if that would minimize the experience. Like I'd be more curious to look at the data on the number of situations where there's a negative or bad outcome today, if it was always family driven, versus if there was a financial institution or a professional external third party involved in that client's estate. Because my hope is that it creates an accountability layer that just isn't there. Like people are not equipped to deal with their family, especially when there's big money involved. And I would love to see an experience where either Trust and Mull is one option, or your institution, your bank, or your mortgage, who your mortgage is with, would serve in this function of co-successor trustee or have this professional relationship to the client's estate and help minimizing that risk. But I want to get more data on that. I don't have maybe a strong enough answer today, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think in the roles that Jen, Ross, and I serve in various bar associations and whatever, it feels sometimes like there's a push and pull between those who want to move forward towards digitization and those who want to keep it the way things have always been. And maybe it's a generational thing. Maybe it's a familiarity with technology. But I agree with you in that the technology is here and coming, and this is something that people want, right? Maybe not necessarily baby boomers, but maybe Generation Xers or millennials or the younger generations are looking to this.
And I would say some of the naysayers, their arguments or positions, one of them being that signing estate planning documents is a very important process, and the actual signing is ceremonial in nature to really impart the gravitas of the reality of the situation in somebody's documents and all of the actions that will be triggered, once that person dies, based on those documents. And so some of the people who are more disinclined to get on the electronic wills bandwagon are concerned that some of that ceremony and gravitas of the actual signing of the documents will be lost in just digitally, doing it very quickly.
In order to perfect or to complete the trifecta of us on our soapbox, I think I'll just say perfect is the enemy of good and leave it at that. But to the process, I do want to ask very quickly about, go back to what you said about some of the legislation and following that. And you have some competitors in the marketplace, of course, and was there cooperation or at least conversation in thinking through and looking at the evolution of the laws? Because rather than a you versus a competitor, it's more of the thinking through how you can be useful together to shaping the future of electronic wills and all the other relevant laws at play.
Yeah. Rising tide lifts all boats. So, kind of think through three buckets, right? The legacy offline attorney experience, which is what millions of people do every year. LegalZoom got sued by every state bar association and outmaneuvered their way out of this. We modeled a lot of our documents off their case law. So thank you, LegalZoom, for fighting those battles for us. But, I have a friendly relationship with Dan Wernikoff, the current CEO of LegalZoom. Same with John Suh, the previous CEO. Have pitched mutual investors, even though they're a much older company. Rocket Lawyer offers like a very off-the-shelf templated experience. They've been at it for 12 or so years. And then there are a few startup players. We're not the only ones. So there's a company out of Miami, Florida called Willing.com that was acquired by MetLife and are now, basically fully wrapped into MetLife legal plans. But Ilium and team were kind of the early starters of the Florida e-will process that actually got vetoed at the governor's desk and then got brought back and signed by DeSantis. And then you have Free Will in New York. You have Patrick and Jenny that are going purely the nonprofit route for plan giving purposes, offering a free will-based estate plan to anybody that comes to their site, but through donors of these large nonprofits. They've been at it for about 5 years. And then Tomorrow, Dave Hanley at Tomorrow, a Seattle-based startup, very much it feels like more of an insurance play. They have a lot of life insurance introductions throughout the product flow, but they've both raised venture, which I'm happy to exist. But we're a lone wolf on the e-will kind of game. I would say a great respect for these companies, but we're not getting financial support, we're not getting product support, and credit to Notarize and even to DocuSign for making such massive progress with remote online notary that we can at least try to work with them to bring e-wills to the masses at the same effect that Ron has rolled out over the last couple of years. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm so convinced that over the next 2 to 3 years that we're actually probably going to find more success in working with some of the top trust and estate firms and attorneys across the country in bringing this to mass market consumers, more so than the digital players. And it's not a knock at the digital ones. I just think that it's such a better client experience at the end of the day. We hope we can help more families experience it.
So, Cody, where do you see Trust and Will going next 5 years?
Okay, so great question. We've been doing this for 3 years. I'm the most excited I've ever been about this company and the opportunity. We have such a wonderful team spread across 6 states that we get to build these products as much for ourselves as we do for mass market. Trust and Will in 5 years will be a public company. We'll have raised probably 1 or 2 more rounds of growth equity capital. We'll be the de facto mass market consumer player for helping families create or update their estate plan. We'll be the integrated partner for every financial advisor in this country in helping their clients with their holistic financial planning. We'll have built the first truly end-to-end digital platform for a transfer of wealth. We'll have rolled out a modern-day trust bank, one that the world has never seen. And how do we not take a 2 to 3 year estate settlement, and how do we turn that into maybe 2 to 3 weeks at tops? We'll be the first platform to account for truly every digital asset class that's in market to date, that we joke about on this conversation, but in 5 years, crypto will be one of the largest asset classes. Digital assets will be all assets, physical and digital. And we'll have built the first social network around a cap table to make transfer of wealth and assets seamless without ever having to leave our ecosystem. And our hopes is that we've helped hundreds of thousands of trust and estate attorneys, CPAs, and financial advisors better serve their tens of millions of clients that they work with every year. Because I don't want us to forget the human component. That is why we started this company, that is who it is for, and to remove people from it removes the soul of why a company should have its purpose or existence. And, as a public company, I hope that we could extend our reach outside the United States. I think there's dozens of countries, English-speaking countries to start, but dozens of countries around the world that could benefit from a similar model. And the way that we've navigated the regulatory waters of the U.S. will hopefully help us navigate those same waters in foreign territory.
Well, we have been watching you guys grow over the past couple of years, and we will continue to watch you guys accomplish all of those things in the next 5 years. Cody, if any of our viewers want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, I'm an open book. Cody Barbo on Twitter and LinkedIn. Please send some context that you heard me on the podcast here. If you want to work with us, we have this expanding attorney network. If you want to challenge my assumptions, I'm always an open book. In fact, our in-house attorney, Patrick, I wish he was on this call because we would geek out at a level of detail that's far beyond what I've communicated. But more than anything, if you have clients that you've had, or potential clients you've had to turn away, or family members that you'd like to see have a complete and great estate plan, we'd love to take care of them at trustandwill.com. So, guys, I'm just grateful for the time and always grateful to share our journey. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Cody, and congratulations on all your success. And we would love to have you and your in-house counsel back and continue to share your progress and get more granular in our discussions. I think it'd be fun.
I love that.
You've been listening to the latest episode of the Digital Planning Podcast. I'm Ross. On behalf of my co-hosts Jen and Justin, we want to send our thanks to Cody Barbo, CEO and co-founder of Trust and Will, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Digital Planning Podcast, the podcast designed to educate individuals about all things digital in connection with estate planning, business planning, and estate administration. Please subscribe to this podcast and leave us a rating or review on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever you download your podcasts. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
This podcast is not intended nor should be relied upon as legal advice, nor is it creating any attorney-client relationship with a listener and the hosts or guests. The information provided is only for educational and informational purposes, and the information provided will likely change.